Building a solid team around you is the most important part of any real estate investor's business. Today we're talking about how to find that great contractor to help your business run smoothly. Here we go. We've all heard the horror stories about bad contractors, bad tenants, bad everything. I'm here to tell you that you make your money up front by doing a great job of the hiring process. Trey's here to tell you some of the red flags that you don't want to deal with when you're interviewing contractors. He can tell you what you are looking for as far as the licenses, the meeting, the initial consultation, all the initial walkthrough, all those things that you need to know before you start flipping houses or even get your first rental.
Yeah, I mean, we all, our first instinct is to jump on Google or Facebook Marketplace or Angie's List and find the first person that'll say yes and sort of show up at your door and do the job. It's not always the right way. It can cost you, hand over fist in the end if you just take the first person that says yes. There's a few differences right away that you need to know between a handyman or a hammer swinger off Facebook. The 5,000 people that answer your ad for, hey, I need a microwave installed or I need some carpet laid. My cousin's brother's uncle's nephew does this all the time.
Always.
There's a difference between a GC and a handyman, and it comes down to a simple check. I mean, you ask them straight up front, hey, are you licensed? Are you licensed in the state that you're operating in? Regardless of what state it is. And do you have insurance? Are you gonna, if you burn my house down, or if you, you tell me you can do something and you halfway do it and you can't do it, or damage something, can you, is your insurance gonna cover it? And these are easy checks. If they say, oh, I don't, I can get it to you, I don't have it, or I'm in the process of getting a license or so forth and so on, just move on to the next person. A professional contractor is going to have his stuff together. He's going to have it in his vehicle. He's going to hand it to you. It most of the time generally is stamped on the side of his truck. And these are some red flags. No business card, no professional appearance, no professional vehicle. They don't have their logo on the vehicle, or they don't have even the equipment to complete the simplest of jobs. Okay, they're going out and buying brand new stuff to do your job. Those are just some small red flags. I mean, stuff. Get online and go on your Secretary of State website, whatever state it is. Go to business listings, and it will literally tell you if their entity is active or inactive. It's a simple check, and take a second to Google their reviews. Hey, for the most part, people are pretty honest on those things. You can tell the ones that aren't, but for the most part, you'll be able to see, hey, is this guy legitimate or not? And then there's always the Better Business Bureau. The thing about the BBB is you have to pay to be listed, so they are validating that you're an honest and forthright company. And every business that you conduct, somebody can go in there and they can give an honest review. And these are just some simple things to check for, okay? Because Bubba, he'll show up and he has his hammer and his tool belt and he'll, destroy or do whatever. But if he's not legitimate and he's not licensed and insured, it's going to cost you in the long run. It may not cost you on your first house or your second, but by the third or fifth, when you start doing those big flips, you're going to find out what his deficiencies are and where he's struggling. So, Adam, I mean, we've done a lot of houses together, and you've run into a lot of the type of contractors that I'm talking about, or non-contractors. I guess you could give some of your insight as far as your experiences with the wrong person, and what does that cost you?
Yeah, so the big thing is realizing, the old saying is that, good work isn't cheap and cheap work isn't good. Realize in real estate, you're thinking long term. You're not trying to save $2,000 by hiring your friends, buddies, sisters, cousin, aunt. That's not what we're doing here. I want it done right the first time. I want my tenants to be able to move in tomorrow or as soon as possible. And there's many other reasons that you're not only looking for a qualified, insured, licensed contractor. The main thing for me is having some sort of legitimacy and accountability. if a contractor's licensed and they do something wrong, they run away from a project and take your money, or something's not to code, they have a license that's attached to them, the individual. So you are able to make a complaint. You're able to file with the judge and that kind of stuff. If you have to go that route, we don't want to do that. But if you hire Joe somebody off Facebook, well, who is that? And God forbid, and we're going to talk here pretty soon about as far as, payment, that kind of stuff. But you hear all the time that someone hired a friend off Craigslist, they paid X amount up front, they never heard from the guy again. Sweet. I like that.
It happens all the time. And the biggest thing is, if you're going to run a legitimate business, hire a GC. Look for a GC, because he is the one that is going to get those subs, those Joe, Bubba's, Steve's, whoever, because his insurance can cover that. He can train them. They are laborers for him or her.
So do us a breakdown. When you say GC and subs, like, what are you referring to? How many people are we talking about, and what is at risk here?
Okay, so a general contractor is someone that is licensed in the state that they're operating in to manage a project. Okay. And in our state, we can talk about Tennessee, under $25,000 project, they can bid that with no license. So you can have a GC that can bid a $25,000 project with no license, hire his subs, and do, if he runs a legitimate business, that's fine. But if he goes outside of that 25K, which most of us do, go above that 25K, then you have to be concerned. I would say, if you have a good GC, he's going to hire what's called subcontractors. Okay, these are your drywall guys, your framers, your roofers, your HVAC, plumbing, electrical, you name it. If there's a trade, there's a general or a subcontractor for it. Okay, that GC or general contractor is going to carry the liability for those subcontractors. And here in Tennessee, I can tell you, certain fields, they have to be licensed as well, just to be subcontractors. It's like HVAC, plumbers, anyone that has to have an inspection or a permit from the state has to be licensed as well. Even down to masons, you pour your driveways or do your roof. Make sure that those guys have a legitimate license, because they have to. But that's where your GC comes in. That's when I say, vet and hire a good GC, and then he's going to ensure that those subcontractors are on the up and up. They have what they need to make sure that your project goes forward and they're not a liability.
And I'll say that and just so you're aware, almost every project you're going to have a general contractor, and they're going to be subcontractors that you don't even know, you'll never see them. And the reason being is because when you're doing a flip and you have so many different systems at play, you have HVAC issues or HVAC ductwork, you have plumbing that needs to be laid, you have new electricity and that type of stuff. There's no one person that I know of that can do everything per code with a license, because that one person to carry 5 or 10 licenses and stay up with all the regulations and stuff, it's almost impossible. So that's why that GC, that general contractor, he knows the laws, he knows the regs, he knows the codes. He's going to hire those 3 or 4 subcontractors. But what's important to you, the real estate investor working directly with that general contractor, is that he's your single point of failure or success. So you're not concerned, you're not going to go talk to all the 4 or 5 subcontractors and manage them and take phone calls and why are you late and so-and-so's not done. You have one single point of failure or success. It makes your life easier. You make one agreement with the general contractor, you wipe your hands, you let that general contractor do what you're paying them to do. So the big question is, how and where do I find a great general contractor? Well, first thing first, if you're in a middle to large size city, there's almost always what's called RIA, Real Estate Investor Association meetings. I highly recommend going to those meetings. They're usually free. And when you go to these meetings, you're going to find other investors, realtors, contractors, handyman, plumbers, you name it. You're going to find someone there. Find the other investors, ask them. Just ask them. Most people are very helpful and they want you to succeed. Ask them, who do you recommend for plumbing? Who do you recommend for drywall? Do you have a great general contractor you recommend? That right there is step one. You can get on Facebook, you can get on Craigslist, Angie's List is great. You have these methods, but what I have found personally is word of mouth. You don't get referrals generally from about bad contractors. If a person says, you know, so-and-so did 2 houses for us, we highly recommend it, I'm gonna then call that guy and sit down and schedule an interview. But I'm not gonna, I'm not looking on Craigslist personally. I want a certified person that has done work with other people that I trust and respect. I'll take their word for it. I will interview that contractor, and then we can move forward. But the interview process I'm gonna talk about a little bit later. I'm gonna let Trey talk to you about, you know, what he sees on his side when he's interviewing with that person that's trying to hire him on for a position, and what are some things that he's looking for or red flags for him to kind of step off.
Yeah, typically when I'm in a conversation with a homeowner or an investor, you know, about a project, first thing I'm going to get out of the way is, you know, what are your expectations? What are you looking to get out of not only our relationship, but the entire project? What's your end state? I try to get a feeling for if their expectations meet their budget. Okay, because a lot of times the reality is that it does not.
Very important.
They see the DIY channel, the home flippers and the flipper flops or whatever, and they have an unrealistic expectation of not only cost, time, and then, you know, the amount of effort it takes to make their project a reality. So we try to get grounded first off, and then we do some expectation management, figure out if their budget is going to cover what their expectation is, and I'm pretty candid about that. And if your contractor's not, then that's a red flag as well. If he's like, yeah, no problem, you know, your $2,000 will cover this entire, home flip. That's something to be wary of, because he's going to cut corners, or he's going to use subpar materials, or he's just not going to do, what's under the surface correctly to get it to meet your expectations visually, but not structurally. Again, they got to meet code. If they're not licensed, they probably don't know what code is. But yeah, that's just some things that, some baseline things that I look at. Do they have realistic expectations? 1, is their budget going to cover their project? 2, and are they receptive to what I'm telling them as far as this is going to be the time it's going to take, how much it's going to cost, in the general sense.
So you received a few names from your RIA meeting the other night of potential contractors. You call one of them, you schedule to go have coffee at Starbucks, and you sit down to have your first in-person face-to-face interview. What are some of the things that you're looking for? Well, when I sit down with a contractor for the very first time, as Trey mentioned earlier, is expectation management. All right, I let them know up front, hey, I'm a real estate investor. I'm not necessarily looking for wholesale prices, but I am going to give you lots of volume. We have X amount of houses. We do X amount of houses per year. And this is how we run our business, how we're efficient, what's our documentation, what are the risks that we take, what are the risks that we expect the contractor to take, and so on and so forth. Here's your fill out process. You want to sit down and look that person in the eye, and as we mentioned before, I want to see now your license. I want to see some of your, if you're worth anything, you'll have a portfolio book of some of the projects you've done. You'll give me 3 or 4 or 5 or more phone numbers to confirm your last previous projects. I've had contractors say, follow me to the current project, and I love it. So I get to see their crew in action, what they're doing. I've talked to homeowners of current projects before to get their take. Are they on time? Is there any issues with their actions on the site? Are they drinking? Are they cursing? Do they leave the house a mess when they leave for the evening? Those are questions or concerns, because I've flipped many houses before where during the flip I've had neighbors that want to do a walkthrough, and I can't just have a trash, a mess, everywhere when we're trying to show these homes, even though we know they're not done. So again, it's a fill out process. It's a formal interview, and I recommend vetting everything we've talked about, everything the contractor has told you. If they say we got 5 projects going on right now, well, show me one. And if he can't show you one, obviously there's an issue. Cut your losses. Get out of there. Thank you for your time. It is what it is. All right, so you've got a great contractor, great interview. Now it's time to really get to work. You have your property. So now what we do is we go through it, we create a very detailed scope of work. And what a scope of work is what you, the homeowner, investor, is your vision for the property. You're gonna be very, very specific and very, very detailed. I'll tell you, and he'll tell you the same thing, is you can't leave anything up for interpretation when it comes to remodeling, fixing, building, renovating, because we may read the same thing on paper, but if it's very vague and indefinite, his vision could be completely different than mine. So when I do a scope of work, I'm very, very detailed. If I want, oil bronze hinges, this style, I'm gonna add that to my scope of work, and information when I give to him is gonna have the SKU number from Lowe's or Home Depot. Whatever your vision is, you cannot leave it up for interpretation. So what we do, develop that scope of work. It can be, I prefer on Word document probably. You can do it on Excel spreadsheet, whatever works for you. I like Word. It is what it is. I can attach pictures and kind of give a blueprint of what we're really looking for. We will meet at the property. I'll meet with my contractor at the property. I will hand him a copy of the scope of work. He's got the scope of work in his hands. He's got a pencil or a pen to make notes. And now we're looking to walk through the house and talk about everything on this scope of work. He's going to tell me that, hey man, you're way off on what you think we can do here because of this code or this situation or this is out of date. He's going to tell me, yeah, we can definitely do, this type of tile. I get it from Lowe's. I get a 40% discount because whatever. He's the inside knowledgeable person as far as materials are concerned, timelines, and everything as far as hands on the project. All right. So I'm really leaning on him very hard to give me his expertise, to give me the real ground truth on what we're looking to do. Is it feasible? And then we're also going to talk about not only the work we're going to do, how it's going to come out, but also the timeline. As he said before, it's about managing expectations. Generally speaking, this is general. A 3-man crew on a 3-bedroom house, general flip, new bathroom, small kitchen stuff can be about 3 to 5 weeks, give or take. It could run a little bit longer. It could be much easier than you think it is and be a 2-week job. But just generally speaking, my experience, 3-bed, 2-bath, overhaul, basic flip, 3 to 5 weeks, give or take. But that's not to say that will not change. So again, I'm leaning on the expert here. I'm not the expert. That's not the hat I wear. I'm the investor. I need people smarter than me to tell me what the ground truth is. So Trey, when you meet as the investor walking through with your subcontractors and other people's going to help you with that flip, what are some of the other things you're going to point out that is important to you that maybe me, the new investor, may not look for?
Typically when I meet with that investor or client at the home, again, we're going to go through expectation management. Okay, you can't build the Taj Mahal in 5 weeks. It's just not going to happen.
For $1,500.
For $1,500. I wish I could. I wish I could, magically snap that into existence, but it doesn't happen. So once we overcome that, we typically, I want to make the customer happy, the end user happy. So we want to make sure their paint colors are right. We want to make sure their materials are the materials that they feel comfortable with. You don't want the cheapest carpet or the cheapest tile or the cheapest countertops, on a high-end flip. So you have to, kind of maintain that communication with the investor or the homeowner to say, hey, okay, are we doing granite? Are we doing laminate? What pulls do you want? What color do you want? What is the theme of the house? Is it high end? Is it low end? Is it a rental? That sort of thing. And once everybody is comfortable with that, and I understand the scope of work, I can take that back and I can source the materials. I can source what subcontractors are going to be required. I can communicate with those subcontractors, and I can establish a timeline. And then I can give them a realistic timeline. I mean, once you do 5, 6, 10 of these flips, you're going to be able to walk in there with a little bit better off the tongue, hey, this is going to take 3 weeks. Hey, this is going to take 4 weeks. But typically, you want to take that time to step back, and as an investor, you're going to give that contractor that time to give you a realistic estimate, okay? And he's going to come back and tell you, hey, you're in the ballpark, in your budget and your timeline, or you're way off, and we need to adjust a little bit. And when you get a contractor that does this a lot, they're going to have some good suggestions for you. Hey, they're going to have some things that you may not even have thought of, ways to change the layout, ways to, save money here and there that you may not even have contemplated. So that's, again, is a good reason to have a good contractor, because they're not in it to take all your money. They want you to save money, have the best end product, okay, and move on to the next project. But that being said, that's what I'm looking for in that relationship with an investor.
Yeah, almost every time I walk through with a contractor, they point out things I never would have thought of, and like you said, to save me money, not just no shortcuts taken, but there are more efficient ways to do certain things. Codes change yearly. So that contractor being, up to speed with the current codes, that's very, very valuable. All right, so you've done your walkthrough. Now you have a great idea of what you're getting into. You're okay with the timeline. You're okay with the cost. Now it's time to get your 4 important documents signed before the first hammer is ever swung. I'll go from top to bottom, what they are, why they're important, and how to use them. First thing first, you have a general contract. It states, hey, me and Trey are working on 123 Main Street. We're going to do a basic 3-bedroom, 2-bath flip beginning on 1 April, ending on 27 April for $22,572. Whatever it is, but you're going to have those detailed specifics that's going to govern this contract. There's more important information there as well, but those are the basics that you're going to have as far as a timeline, a monetary payout, and other basic expectations in there. Secondly, you're going to have that scope of work we talked about. You had a rough draft. You walked through the property, you made your adjustments. Now we're going to put it in writing, and until if anything else changes, we'll address it at that point. But for further notice, this is what we're going to do. This is our agreement. This is our vision, and we'll go from there. Your payment schedule. A very, very important part of real estate is managing the flip, and you're not going to pay up front. I never, ever pay for uncompleted work. I only pay for what has been done. So generally speaking, my experience, the payment schedule may go like this. Demolitions complete, $2,000 draw. Flooring complete, $3,000 draw. When I say draw, I mean payout. So you're gonna have different, payment schedule. You're gonna have different payment amounts. You're gonna put a date on there. If we agree that this is a 3-week project and demo should be done on day 4, then day 4 is that date. Day 4 is $2,000. We're being that detailed. Again, things may change, but if anything changes, we'll put in writing that this is the change, this is why it changed, and this is moving forward. An amendment or addendum, if you will, to the agreement. And last thing we'll talk about as far as the information that I want to have signed, the documentation, is the insurance indemnification. And what that is every contractor, if he's going to be licensed, he's also going to carry his own insurance. They're going to sign saying they indemnify me of any liability, any issues of anybody in his crew working, stumbles, falls, gets electrocuted, whatever it is, that is the contractor's responsibility. That is not my job, not my responsibility. So you're going to sign an indemnification of insurance waiver working with me. So the project is going on, the contractors are in there doing the work, getting everything done. I'm gonna let Trey tell you about the communication with the homeowners and what happens if anything changes, anything is uncovered. How do you handle that from the contractor standpoint?
So it's unique for me because being an investor and a contractor at the same time, there's certain touch points that you have to hit from the contractor's perspective. The pay points, okay? Once the demo is done, I'm going to call the client and I'm going to say, okay, the demo is complete. Here's your, here's the photographs. Or do you want to complete a walkthrough in order to submit that paperwork to your paying agent or bank or whoever it is to get that paid out? And that's going to, hold true throughout the project. Once the painting is done, anything that requires a subcontractor to be paid out. Or a bulk materials order. If you're going to order, say an entire home's worth of roofing, flooring, things like that require a payout. You're going to touch back to or you're going to communicate back with the client and say, okay, this is complete. This is where we're at. We're still on time. Or this has changed, and that's a big one. Okay, if you've run into anything, if you've ever touched a home before, tried to flip a home before, it's never black and white. It's when you start peeling back layers of not only decades or years, but other failed attempts at renovations or other flips that you uncover, you're bound to uncover something. Be it plumbing, electrical, HVAC, foundation, wood rot, termites, you name it. You're probably going to run into it. Maybe not the first project, but down the road. Not being up to code. If you touch anything in the house that requires a code, you're going to have to bring it up to the current standards, i.e. hot water heater, deck, anything like that. If you're readjusting the pitch of the roof, adding anything onto the exterior of the home, things of that nature, you got to make sure that your permits are in order, and that you're communicating with the client about the increase in cost and timeline. Okay, when that timeline has to be adjusted or that cost has to be adjusted, it's very important that they know about it prior to you moving forward.
Communication is key. So you guys, you've been to the house, 3 weeks have gone by, you got the contractors completing the process, and you're just happy. I tell my contractors, I love paying contractors because that means work is getting done. The big thing for me is that final paycheck, that final check to that contractor. The house is ready to go, it's ready for new tenants, ready to be sold. Best day of the entire project. I'll tell you, there's one more document that you've got to get signed when you hand that final paycheck. And what that is an unconditional lien waiver. What that means is, you got to protect yourself at all times, both sides. There's been cases where years later, a contractor, if they wanted to, could come back and put a lien on their property for anything that they felt was done wrong. They felt they weren't paid enough, or they felt something wasn't justified. I have them sign a lien waiver, meaning they've been, and it says, have been paid in full, contract is complete, cannot put a lien on the property no matter what. Not to say anybody would, but it's just one more, thing that makes you a legitimate investor, protecting you, your asset, and your properties. So, Trey, I want to thank you for coming on and really giving us a ton of information. Do you have any alibis or any things that you wish you had known starting out on day one that may have made you more efficient in your first few dealings as an investor or as a contractor?
Yeah, I mean, if I could say anything, stay away from the random say yesers from Facebook and Craigslist and all those that have the willingness to show up once, take your money and leave without doing the job properly or at all sometimes. Do your homework, do your diligence. It will pay you in the end. The frustration, the searching, the interviewing, do the work up front, or you're going to pay for it. We'll just put it that way. And you may pay for it multiple times. But yeah, quality control, check. Tell them what you want and then check. If you don't check, they're probably not going to do it the way you want it done. And then you're going to have to deal with that in the end. When the project is done and they want their paycheck, if it doesn't look like you want it to look, you're going to have issues. So go visit your site often. Be part of the project. Make them kick you out. You want to check your paint, check your flooring, check your tile. Don't just rely on them to understand your vision and run with it. Once you do 15 houses together, they probably got you. Yeah. But the first couple, make sure that you guys are on the same page, or gals, and that's going to pay you in the end.
So I'll say that document everything. Documentation is key. God forbid you have to go to legal. Me saying something not recorded is worthless. So document everything. Spend the time, like you said up front, to do the interview, to do the research, to confirm licenses, all that kind. Do your due diligence up front, because we're talking about it long term. This is 5 years in working still right now, because we built that bond, we built that great working relationship. So do your due diligence. Document everything. Never, ever, ever pay for uncompleted work, and live to fight the next day. Go find the next property. Go find the next contract. Keep on working. Guys, as always, I'm Adam Johnson. It's my buddy Trey Basnight. If you found any value in this video, please like, subscribe, share with a buddy. Why not? It's free. Until next time, it's been a pleasure. We'll see you guys later.